my own music whenever it goes running in the beginning of the episode. Oh my gosh, we're back. I'm Doormat Mom, and this is the Doormat Mom No More podcast where we talk about estrangement, family estrangement, specifically parent-child. And I bring you guests that speak from all different types of perspectives on the topic. It's very hot right now, which is honestly really unfortunate that it is, but better that we talk about it and hopefully at some point work towards a solution. That's what I think we all want. But today's guest I came across a while ago, and we were supposed to do this interview a while ago, and it just kept getting pushed back because schedules are crazy, hers and mine. And so her name is Nicole Coates. She primarily shares her videos on Instagram, and she's a mom. She's not a therapist. She doesn't claim to be a therapist, but she's a mom, and she's an estranged mom, and she's also a Christian. And she really has a huge heart. That's the thing that grabbed me the most about her. It's like love pours off the page with this woman. And it begs to ask the question, how someone with such a obviously huge heart, how she ended up in this estrangement dynamic, which also begs to ask the question and also push the point that if it can happen to her, in an essence, it can happen to anyone. And even though people don't want to realize that, and that's really fought against. That she notes that in one of her videos. But let me share a video of hers, and let me embarrass her a little bit more. And and then I'm gonna bring her on. She'll tell you a little bit about her background, and then we'll go from there. All righty. So let me bring her video to stage.
Somewhere along the way, things shifted, and the new price of being a parent is perfection. We're not allowed to ever get it wrong. If we say too much, we're controlling. If we say too little, we're cold. If we set a boundary, we're toxic. We're all walking around on eggshells, trying not to lose the ones that we love, because the consequence of getting it wrong is being cut off. But if perfection is the entry fee into their lives, no one's getting in. And if you get in, you're only in temporarily, and then you'll be asked to leave. Perfection can't be the cost. Something has to give.
And something is. A lot of things are given, right? The family's given. So, Nicole, welcome. I loved that video because it said something that people aren't saying, with regards to this. Perfection cannot be the price tag,
right,
to have a family, and yet it has become. So what I'd love to know is a little bit more about your story, how you became part of this group, and take it away. I really like to know.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, you got me all emotional with your intro. Because
it's interesting to see how people see you, right? But
yeah, and that's how I would hope that I come across, and so it's nice that is what's coming across, because sometimes I feel like I get a little bit spicy on there, but I don't think. I'm glad the overarching feeling is that there's just so much love. So, yeah, I'm a mom of 4. So my oldest is 22, and then I still have 3 teens at home, 16, 13, and 12, and we're estranged with our 22-year-old. And I know that sounds young to be estranged from already, but this is our second round of estrangement with her. She actually moved out early and went to college at 17, and we had a different kind of estrangement, more like where there's tension and there's distance and you're walking on the eggshells, but you're still in communication, but it's very sparingly and it's very like on their terms and kind of thing. And we were able to reconcile. And then this time it's been a full cutoff, and that's for a multitude of reasons. mostly because we'd already walked through it once.
Right.
I held a boundary a little bit much stronger than I would have previously, but I've already walked through it.
Right.
And so there's a multitude of reasons that we landed here, but the fact of the matter is that we are, and it's not just a cutoff with my husband and I, it's our whole family. It's her. She's not talking to her siblings. She's not talking to her grandparents. My mother-in-law she has cancer and she's aging and she lives across the country and she won't speak to her either. And so it's a full cutoff of our entire family. And it just doesn't, the reaction doesn't match, the discussion that was had, or what I assume is what is the cutoff is. I couldn't even actually tell you because when I asked to have a conversation about it, she said no. And so what can I do with that? There's not a lot I can do with that. You're stuck. And there's so many moms in that same situation. And so that's how I landed in this club that none of us want to be a part of. And I started talking. I put a reel out on Instagram about it because I'm pretty open and vulnerable with my life. And I did not expect it to resonate in the way that it did. I know I had created it, but so many people always in the comments, like, I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one. I'm sure you see that too. Like, I didn't know that there's all this. And I created the reel, but I did not know that this many people would resonate with it. I did not know that this whole community and club existed.
Yeah, well, I think that when you came in and I came in, the silence was deafening on this topic, right?
Yeah.
And I think we can both, I know I can speak to the fact that when I experienced the same thing as you did when I went on TikTok with it. It was just like I was just going out looking for a community to just like there's got to be other people like this out there. That can't just be me because no one in this world. And my video just blew up. And it was just, and I think it's because of when we walked in, because everybody was ashamed to talk about it.
100%.
And so all of a sudden the veil got lifted. And what I noticed is the more we lifted it, you on Instagram, me and TikTok, it was just people were flooding out from underneath. Yeah. And then it sort of gave a license for other people to talk about it.
Right.
Like the creators started talking about it. And then it became, you started hearing more about the science behind it. And you started hearing more about therapists who are really good therapists who are coming out saying, yeah, this is actually happening. And it's happening to really good parents. And I think that was a misnomer is that, you that old and so prevalent, demand that it doesn't happen to good parents. You must have done something. You must have done something. That got stripped away, even though they're clinging to it. We stripped it away. It does happen to good parents.
Yes.
And,
I don't know if you saw my video, my most recent video, but I've come to the realization that I think the reason that society is clinging to that narrative so much so is because for them to admit that it's happening to parents that are good parents, just normal people, it means that it's possible for anyone to be affected by it. It's easy to categorize it and say, it's not going to happen to me because I'm not abusive. I'm not toxic. I'm not the monster. So this is not something I have to worry about. This is a you problem. But the reality is that that's not the case anymore. It's happening to parents who are just normal because the level is this perfection that we will never achieve. And so we will always fail. And if that's the case, then it can happen to anybody. And I think that terrifies people. And it's way easier to just push us off into the category of that's you. It's clearly you. And it's not the truth anymore.
No. And I think it terrifies some people, but I also think there is a level of superiority that's existing among young parents who actually feel as if they found that key that we somehow missed. They're doing it so different and so better. And, it's reflected in the kids that are actually cutting off too, because these two groups are definitely running very close to each other, right? And so um, there's a superiority out there that is dumbfounding. And it's like when you climb too high, and that fall becomes a really, really steep fall. That fall, in my opinion, will be really, really steep because in their minds, they can't even somehow comprehend that, it's not that any of us tried to get it wrong. We all think we were doing it right. Were good parents. And so do you, but you're going to find out the hard way once you fall off that seat too, because it doesn't happen to anyone today. Maybe years ago. But the dynamic around raising children is different too.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
I was a mom who apologized. I mean, I have parented in a way that I will openly admit when I am the first one in my household to say that I am not a perfect parent. I'm just a flawed human being who's a mom who's doing my best. And I am one who frequently apologizes to my kids. I get it wrong. Yeah, I should not have reacted that way. That was an overreaction. I apologize. And so when people come and they're like, you should just apologize. It's like, I've done those things.
right.
I'm like,
Right.
so for you to just assume that I fall into this category, that is very frustrating, but.
Right. I mean, I never looked at apologizing to my kids as a, some sort of, it's taking skin off my back, so to speak. I always looked at apologizing as, okay, I made a human mistake.
Right.
And if I apologize, then they can also recognize that, I recognize that I made a mistake. I am truly sorry for it. And that when they grow to be parents, they do the same with their kids. I always looked at it as almost like insulation for them going forward. I never looked at it as, as something that was, a negative per se. I'm okay with making mistakes. You have to.
I was hoping it would just let them see me as a human, that like I'm not trying to say I have it all together and, put on a facade of something I'm not. I'm just human. And in some ways, I don't know that I would change it, but I do feel like it backfired a little bit because I was hoping that it would open the door, especially as they got older, to just I'm just a human being.
Right.
Like, and there doesn't seem to be any grace to be had. And I don't know why that is. And, I'm a normal mom. So I've evaluated like should have I done things differently? But I also think like it's the generation, and like you had mentioned, like it's a different generation coming up, and there's the exposure in social media and the therapy vocabulary that they have, I think plays a part in it. But yet there's no real conflict resolution. Like relationships are messy and complicated, and we got to be able to talk through it. We can't just put boundaries up and say, I'm going to walk away until I'm healed. But healing doesn't happen unless we can communicate about it. How do we get past the boundaries and the vocabulary that they have from social media or therapists who aren't great therapists? And
all right. Well, I think, you said a very interesting thing, and let's like dissect that for just a second. How do we get past the boundaries? If you have to get past the boundaries, a boundary is put in place to invite the relationship to continue, right? A boundary is used. It's not a wall. A boundary just is a parameter that, okay, I'm putting this in place because I want this relationship to continue. So it's a leeway. So it's almost like it's never getting past the boundaries. I think what you're talking about is, how do we pull down the walls?
Yeah, that's true.
The walls.
Yeah.
Those are not boundaries. Walls are walls. And we continue to interchange, that word. But there's nothing wrong with boundaries.
Right.
And we own those boundaries. We put down the boundary. If anyone who puts down the boundary is responsible for holding the boundary. It's not the other person that's responsible for holding the boundary. If you put it on the other person, that's an ultimatum and that's a wall. And that becomes a demand. So I think it's that confusion many times that causes part of the problem, right?
Well, yeah, it sounds better to say this is the boundary I want in place instead of saying this is the wall I'm putting up.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let me bring on, I said to you, I want you to, let's take a look at this video. I'm going to be interviewing this gentleman. I'm so happy to do this in January. And I want your opinion on, he has a very interesting perspective. A lot of the things that he is saying, you say in your own way, but in a very softer way. He just goes right at it. So let me just bring this on because this is wild. And I respect him for it. I really do. All right, let's go here. All right, and let's go here.
Okay, I want to talk to the parents out there whose kids decided to cut them off. I'm not talking about the parents who really kind of messed up. All right, you guys know you know what you need to do. You have to go apologize. All right, it's just what you have to do. No, I want to talk to the parents out there whose kids have cut them off, even though you as parents have basically did the best you possibly can. Okay, that's where the growing epidemic is happening. It's not happening with like serious abuse. Here's the thing. Trauma is an overused word. Abuse is by far an overused word. And what you want to stop doing as a parent is buying into the language that your coddled, unappreciative, spoiled little kid is using against you during Thanksgiving or Christmas on why they continue to cut you off as if you did something wrong. Stop buying into their language of being abusive or oppressive when really you were just basically being a very good parent. Comb your hair, brush your teeth. Hey, Billy, why don't you go to the gym? Because you look kind of big. Okay. Here's the thing. Most people who are under 30, anytime you challenge them, they immediately see it as, oh my gosh, my mom is abusing me. She's not abusing you. Okay. That's actually a sign that you're overly coddled. Do you actually want to know, for example, whether or not you have been traumatized? Are you ready for this? Do you know why I know most of you have not been traumatized? Because you talk about it all the time. Do you know what trauma does to the human brain? It shuts down the Broca's area. Do you know what the Broca's area is? It's the verbal processing part of your brain. So guess what happens when you actually have trauma? You don't talk about it on TikTok and you don't talk about it on Instagram. In fact, most people who have actually had, that I've actually had in my office, okay, who've actually been traumatized, I have to convince them that they have been traumatized. And the second thing is, they don't even know how to talk about it. Okay, so that just basically gets rid of about 95% of you who talk so much about how traumatized you are. Bullshit. You weren't traumatized. It's called stress. It's called having a relationship with somebody that's trying to raise your ass when you're being a jerk, okay? Listen, parents, hear me out. Stop apologizing when you did the best you could. Stand up for yourself. Get a backbone, all right? Don't buy into this drama that you somehow abused or traumatized them when all you did was the very best that you possibly could. Good for you. I'm proud of you. I am proud of you. You were a good parent. And just because your kid is a coddled narcissist who doesn't appreciate you doesn't mean that you were a bad parent. You weren't. I'm proud of you. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Okay, I want to talk.
That was interesting.
Yeah, Peter Anderson, he's a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Massachusetts. He owns his own practice and he just says what it is.
Yeah.
And I applaud him because I when I saw them, like that's what I've been saying all this time. People are really abused. Don't want to go revisiting that every day, using it in every way that they can to manipulate and socialize and all add every other adjective in, right?
Yeah.
So traumatize their parents. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they don't do it. They don't do that. It just is. Yeah. So I have to agree. So now your thoughts on that, because
he's very bold, and I can appreciate, especially on social media, that the need for the boldness to just cut through. I would be curious to know when he said that he has to convince people. I made a note of it. He has to convince them of their trauma. How does he, I would be curious to know, how does he do that? How does one convince someone of their trauma? And how do we know that he's not convincing them of trauma that, like, how do we know? Okay, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Is he a good therapist that's convincing him that actual trauma is actual trauma? Or is it the therapist that's falling in the category of we're creating mountains out of molehills?
So,
Do you know what I mean?
and I'll ask him that question, but here's my gut instinct. Given that his whole video was how his whole video was,
True.
I would assume he's
True.
not convincing him that they
True.
had trauma. I would assume his prevalence would be anyone who really didn't have trauma, he'd be saying, yeah, you didn't have trauma. Trauma
Fair.
is this. And so, and a lot of times it's like when you beat a dog, right? You know, they become so
Yeah.
internal
Mhm.
that they almost like, either they don't want to go back there or they just don't they don't have the capacity to go back there because they don't even not rationalize that maybe they were this is just their lives, this is the way
Yeah.
it was, and so but and he's saying, yeah, no, you shouldn't have been set on fire on Tuesday because
Right.
you ate
Right.
an extra piece of toast.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Right.
so I think that's what I would think he's doing. Unlike
Yeah,
many
fair.
other therapists on social media that are basically, telling all of them, that yeah, your parents traumatized you because they
Yeah.
took the extra piece of toast away from you. Because apparently Tommy needs to go to the gym.
Yeah, that was really bold. I also am curious, and I think you can speak to this too because you talk about this a lot, about like when he's talking about not coddling them and like parents have a backbone, stand up. What does that look like? Like how does that look like if you're navigating a relationship with your child? So in his scenario, like you're obviously not estranged yet because you still the child's still coming over. And like that's the scenario he was bringing up. So how does a parent then have a backbone if their child's coming to them and saying like, hey, I think that this behavior is abusive, you're unsafe, using these terminologies, then what is the response to your child in order if the goal is to, and then maybe just answer that question, then I'll do my next question.
I think that if your child is saying, I don't like this, I don't like that, I want to do this, I want to do that, it's basically saying I don't agree or no. I think that's the backbone that he, we've got to have backbone. We have to be the parent. We can't be the
right.
We can't be the friend. I think we moved so far into the friend zone that the parent has disappeared, and that's been part of the problem. And I think also, but part of the problem has been the confusion that comes along with raising teenagers, because it used to be that what the parents said went at any stage in the kid's life, right? His parents said, yes, no, look up, look down. In earlier years, the child did it because there was a sense of, obligation, loyalty, respect, and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Now, with all this confusion that happens and the redefining of the roles and the power, that a child, that, if these kids push back on that, they're not necessarily, and then you begin, well, maybe I have to do it because this is what society's telling me. So maybe I do need to respect, the feelings of this child, but yet those feelings are going to get them down the road in the wrong room with the wrong person because I respected their feelings when I should have said no.
Yeah.
And that happens,
mm-hmm.
So I think that's where, having a backbone is in many ways will save, you're looking to save these children from pain that they wouldn't have to face if in fact you just released them into the world and didn't have a backbone, right? It's not our job to protect our kids, even if they're going to, fling themselves off a cliff. All right. You say no, they're mad at you and they're going to do it anyway. Well, if they do it anyway, then that's on them, but at least you try to protect them. Right.
Yeah. I think it's that, and I think for moms, like the moms that are in like my community and my audience, that they're so nervous to say the wrong thing because that will be the nail in the coffin. Like that will be like, it's already tense. It's already like, we're already a little walking on eggshells, but we're so desperate to still be in a relationship with them that we compromise. And like in my situation, I did that. But then the second time around, it's like, I, I'm not willing to do that again because I've been walking on the eggshells and I'm navigating, you know, the terminology that I like to use is that estrangement has like these invisible rules, and I don't know the rules to the game, but I'm held to the consequences when I get it wrong. And so I'm navigating these invisible landmines, and it's exhausting. And sometimes I just watch moms have to navigate that until they get to the point that it's like, is this a relationship that I want to be in anyways? Like I'm so desperate to be in a relationship with them that I'm compromising on sharing an opinion or like or pushing back when they share how they're feeling, like just agreeing with them to keep the peace. But
Right.
then is it keeping the peace in the long run, I think is the argument.
Well, is a relationship something where you have to purposely stop being or acting on your normal instincts in order to maintain that relationship? Does a relationship force you to make yourself small in it? Because that's not a relationship. That's like
Yeah.
that's not a mutual healthy relationship. If the only way you can have a relationship with your child, right, is to allow them to push you around, or to hand over your control, that isn't a relationship. That's a flipping of the parent-child role. And so what we're seeing that in many ways, and they're saying, I think society is saying, no, you're right. That's exactly what it should be. The flipped role is the right way. It's not the right way. And, parents, I think, parents also today, you know, many of us, we love our kids, but there's a difference between loving your child and idolizing them. And I think many parents, especially single parents, because they're put in a situation, and their worlds revolve around their kids, and their kids, become their eyes, whether they're feeling guilty or whether or not it's just the situation where they love their kids and they want the best for their kids, and so in giving them, making these when they feel the best, but that it's the best. But sometimes what looks like the best actually isn't the best. So, one of the things, and this is what I see with this new generation that thinks they've got it all down, idolizing the kid. Well, the kid's feelings and the kid's this and the kid's that and the kids. Well, yeah, all of that's important, but they're not an idol. And when they, start idolizing anyone, and I know you're a Christian, so I'm going to speak to that. The Bible says, no idols before me, right? Well, he's gone out of society now, and we've made our kids the idols. And what's happening? The family is being shredded. Evil is using that to gain a foothold in the family. And it's shredding.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because that's been a topic that we've discussed in with my community, is that, how much of this is spiritual warfare? How much of this is, as Christians? Yes, that's my encouragement to moms, is we really do have to take a look at our own lives. Estrangement, it can force us, because of the things our kids say, to then feel like, oh, like I need to do an evaluation to see if what my kid is saying is accurate. Like, am I these things that they're saying? And I don't think as Christian women, it is easier to do that when we're walking with the Lord. And because who does God say that I am before who my kid says that I am? And let me compare to that truth. But then also, if we're doing that, we need to take a look at ourselves to recognize that we have made our kids idols. We've made motherhood idols. And in doing that, it's putting a lot of pressure on our kids that they fulfill our happiness, when our happiness and our joy should be coming from the Lord and the Lord alone. And these relationships are obviously bonus that the Lord has given us that we can enjoy, and they're beautiful and they do bring us so much joy. But when they are the source of our joy, that's where things get out of whack, and it's too much pressure for them. Like, I'll give them the credit. It's too much. And it's also, we need to get in sync with the Lord. And because also, once we're in sync with the Lord and we're navigating through estrangement, I want to do it well. What fruit is the Lord going to bring out of me? How is he going to grow me if I don't can't guarantee I'm going to be in a relationship with my child. I don't want it to be for nothing. I want to grow in my relationship with him. I want to make sure I don't have any idols, and just reassessing all of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think what happens is these kids become narcissists because of it. And I think that that's one of the reasons why parents have such a hard time letting their kids go, just like go, because we were always going to have to let our kids go, right? I mean, that's at some point that's our role, right? Raise them well, let them go.
Right.
And so many parents, when they let their kids go, they really struggle with letting them go, which is a separate issue, but a coinciding issue too, because in some cases, in real cases, in these situations, there are some parents that just, they're in many cases, they're suffocating their grown kids because they can't let them go. And in those cases, you really do need a way to work that through. And because they have a right to their life and you have a right to be part of it, but you also need to then return to your own life, and both can exist both can exist at the same time. And that's the best way. You want your kids to go off and have a great life.
Right.
And you also still want to have a great life. And moms have made their identity their motherhood. It's never been their mother. It's not their identity. It's a piece of their identity. But it should never have become their entire identity.
Right.
And it could be very hard.
Yeah. And I think when they shift to then walking through estrangement becomes their entire identity. It becomes the grief and the sorrow. And so I hope to be able to help women move through that. Like, okay, let's get to the other side, because this is no way to live.
Yeah. It's so funny. Do you get this? Because I get this. I go, well, why don't you just go on with your life? And get it from these kids. Like, you should just stop talking about it, just go on with your life. And it's like, yeah, I am going on with my life. Quite honestly, I'm not making a strange at my identity, but I am now a voice within this arena.
Right.
And I've chosen to be able to use that voice to help people.
Right. Right.
So I'm just sitting here like, oh, what was me? I mean, there are days that have been very hard.
Sure, absolutely.
You go back and forth in that. But
absolutely.
Where there's love, there's tears sometimes. But
absolutely.
But it is amazing how they just, once again, it's like, they want that control. It's like, okay, just get it. Okay.
Yeah.
You have all the answers. Let me live.
It makes it easier to just tune it out, because the commentary and the DMs and all the things are just, I had a friend ask me last week, like, how can you deal with all the comments? Like, I want to jump in there. And it's like, because I'm confident in who I am as a mom. Like, I know that I did a good job. And so I'm sharing this to try to help other women. So I don't really care what they say in the comments, because it's from their perspective, and it's not accurate of the reality that I'm living. And I can just go about my day holding my head high, knowing that I'm doing what God's called me to do by trying to help other women walking through the same thing, because I don't want anybody else to be in the shadows of shame. And like we started talking about in the beginning, like, I'm the only one, and shame is so heavy that they don't talk about it, because culture says it's because you're toxic. So they don't say it because they think everyone's going to assume it. So I want to keep saying it's not all just toxic parents, so that more women feel like they can say, I'm experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. 100% agree on that. I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're all doing this. Anyone who is involved in this whole thing is doing it. We want to make sure that people are aware. Our society is so different today. I mean, the social media angle of it, which you brought up earlier, is a big piece of it. I mean, the reality is, I would say, maybe point the finger to mom and dad, a number of generations ago, when everyone was still clinging to each other in one commune, and the biggest influence in your life for almost all your life was your parents or grandparents or what everybody was like. But no one's living in a hut today. All right. No one's doing that. So that influence, scientifically, that influence, the greatest influence of parents on their children ends at age 7. So from 7 on, the number one influence in these kids' lives is their environment and their peers. Well, their environment and peers is now global.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why Australia has just put down that, no
Yeah, I
social
saw
media
that.
before 16. It's not going to happen here, because our design is different as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is that's why they did it, and I respect them for doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that global, kids are not prepared for that global world. And they're literally, they're going up in flames because
Mhm.
it's constant,
Right.
never ending, and they have the worst mental health,
Right.
and not for anything, I'm going to say it, unlike Peter Anderson or a couple of others, that I see, therapists are helping them along. Therapists and
Yeah.
mental health professionals are helping these kids become more unstable,
Yeah.
more unhealthy,
Mhm.
more living on the edge of sanity.
Yeah.
And one of a friend of mine says, because the monetization is so dramatic. Well, the
Mhm.
monetization is very dramatic right now,
Mhm.
when it comes to it, and a lot of the therapists are taking taking advantage of that to the
Mhm.
detriment of these kids. But you know what? It's like when you burn the house down, or and at some point the house is burned down. No
Mhm.
one's left in it. There's no one left to treat.
Mhm.
And so you don't burn the house down in order to continue to bank, dough.
Right.
Now that's to me, that's pure evil. To me, that's pure evil.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think therapists are coddling them as well. I think that I think it's become, I think the combination between social media and bad therapy, um, I think we're entering in, I don't know quite, I might get this vocabulary wrong.
Mhm.
I'm not a therapist, a professional. So, but I think that we're creating this new generation or society that we only want an echo chamber. Like we don't want any other. It's like a blind. You have to agree on all the terms, on all the things. Otherwise, you're adamantly against you. And that's not the case. We can exist and be in relationships and have different opinions. But I think because of social media and partly because of therapy, it's just they only want to be affirmed, and we only want, blind allegiance and agreeing. And I think that's unfortunate. It's got to be affecting more than just parent child relationships, because I mean, you just see the anger and frustration on social media. Like there was no discord. They just have normal conversations anymore. Everything's so elevated because no one can just pause and see a different perspective.
Yeah, no, they can't. And it is affecting other relationships too. You're seeing it. Friendships are breaking up. You're seeing
Mm-hmm.
that happening. You're seeing, sister brother relationships breaking up. I mean, it's like if you look at the holidays, and people are wrecked now because there's so much estrangement within families from all different angles.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes into the room holding their hearts and praying that they get out alive. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Politics are breaking families up. I mean, breaking relationships. I was like, we are such an intolerant society
Yeah.
right now, while boasting that tolerance is what we're all about. We're
Yeah.
such an intolerant society.
I miss the part where and I said this to my daughter in one of my last communications with her is um like how have you I would assume my heart. My heart is for you. And I feel like we've lost that. Like my heart is for you. Even if I disagree with you, my heart is for you, and my character should speak loud enough that I don't disparage you. I don't wish anything for us to have disagreement, but I want to work through things. And I feel like the heart of it has gotten lost along the way, and recognize that we're each individuals, and I'm for you. Like, it doesn't
Right.
mean I have to agree with everything you're doing, but my heart is always for you. And I hate that that's gotten lost in the mix of all of the noise. That the root of it is my heart, and that's the sibling breakdown. Like, I, my kids are going to outlive me, and there's this break in their bond. But yet they're going to be the only ones left on this planet after my husband and I are gone that are like, they've been together for so long, and there's
Right.
already a fracture, and my youngest is only 12. That's scary for the future for me. What does that look like? I had hoped that she would be their caretaker. God forbid anything have happened to my husband and I, that she would be able to step in, and that would just be odd now. That would be uncomfortable for the boys, and so but because the heart of it has gotten lost, and I don't have the answers for that, but it's sad. It saddens me.
Well, you and I have the same type of situation going on, because that's that same thing with me. The whole family is just cut off. And I get what you're saying, because, and you said it beautifully. You want to sort of just shake them and say, listen, you've been with me for how many years? I hope at this point you understand what I'm about.
Yeah.
And can't you just like somehow look at the situation at hand and say, oh, well, mom wouldn't do this or that for any particular, just reason to hurt me, or mom wouldn't, because she loves me. Like that rationale, as you're describing, is gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone. Like, and I have to think about, we all hear this thing about, the Oprah estrangement interview.
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts
All right.
on that.
Well, I'm going to say one thing about it. At the ending, where they said, that kids have to look at their parents as, not these, respected roles per se, but they're cherished friends. Well, is the cherished friend the one that can't remember all of like who that parent was consistently throughout the raising you, that they cannot not remember that, mom turned themselves inside out for my happiness and joy and safety and health and welfare. And now I'm basically treating her like the same, the friend, the friend, so to speak, that I can't like give grace to my mom because I just don't remember who she was. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, the cherished friend might not get the same degree of grace or any grace at all, but mom and dad should, if they loved you and like took care of you and everything. So I think that's one of the things. And that was absolutely a ridiculous comment to begin with. But I have to say, bridging it to what we're just discussing, cherished friend. Are you kidding me? It's just, that's absolutely insane. Cherished friends don't go through and do what you do. I mean, you got a great friend, and they can become a great friend, and they can feel like family, and maybe they even become family. But that's still not your parent who went through.
And they would be praised if they did that. They would be praised. Like, this is the family I chose, and like celebrated. But why is that not happening for us?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, I think there were some good points that the Oprah episode, had. Yeah. I don't think it was, at all terrible. Certainly, again, she ratcheted up the noise around it.
Yes.
But I also think that I'm not quite sure everyone that was on, the intentions were, genuinely wanting to solve the issue.
Right.
And some might have been a bit more for promotion than anything else. I always try to shoot from, I really, really want to help solve the issue, because I see tragedy down the line if we don't. Because families, without the existence of families, you don't have anything. You don't have a future. You don't have, so many of the things that make life on this planet worth living.
Yeah.
And that's what gets, you don't even have a society, because, I mean, you see it extrapolate into like, these kids don't even want to get married, and they don't even want, and they're frightened to even have kids. And you compound that with the realities of it, the economic portions of it. There's just so much this goes into that is never spoken about and is off the table. So, I mean, I think it sensationalized the topic in a way. I think certain people made certain points that were good. But I think there's so much more to it, and I'm not quite sure that it wasn't skewed in a particular direction, even though the repetition was, oh, I'm not on either side, given Oprah's background, and her own relationships growing up with her parents, that would be very hard to actually carry out even for the best of us. But
Yeah.
at every conversation, I'm not going to say that every conversation isn't a good conversation, because if you can take
Absolutely.
one thing away
Right.
that's helpful, that's a good conversation.
And I'm seeing it everywhere. Like now it was like, I mean, even though my algorithm is obviously, because I'm talking about estrangement, I see it after the Oprah podcast or interview, whatever it was. It was everywhere, and I saw so many people talking about it. So I can appreciate, my feelings aside of how what I felt about it. I can appreciate that it creates dialogue, and it's opening the conversation for us, especially like what we're talking about here. If I'm not any of these things, if I'm not toxic, I'm not abusive, and it's opening the door to there's other things. They didn't show that on Oprah, but I feel like just creating the opportunity for us to talk about it and normalize the conversation is going to help other moms feel like, oh wait, I'm not alone.
Right.
There's this whole, like, it's big enough to be on Oprah. Like
Right.
it's not just happening to me. So I can appreciate that. And there was things I disagreed with, obviously, but then there was equally things that I could appreciate. And I would be interested if she would do it, if she'll do another one. Like,
my understanding is that she's going to do a follow-up and expand out the conversation, is what I'm understanding. But so let's look at it, what we just said. It wasn't all the way we wanted. We would have liked to see it.
Sure.
All right, it wasn't all perfect. It was not, but it was. We took something away from it, so the existence of it is a good thing, right? There's nothing wrong with it, and that's what these kids don't. That's what they're missing, is you can have a conversation, not agree with every point, still let it exist, take what from it, what is valid, and be okay with hearing what maybe you don't agree with. But
Right.
that's the only way you understand anything, right? That's the only way you broaden your mind, is to push back against, and then appreciate it for what it is and what it did.
Right.
That's where we need to get everybody in this dynamic, that we need to get them to that place where, it's okay if we don't agree. It's okay if we don't agree about politics. It's okay if we don't agree about religion. It's okay if we don't agree about a particular thing you wanted to do that I said, no, you didn't. It's okay. And, it's okay if you want to do it differently than when I did it with your own kids. That's all okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's just life.
I think going back to a point you made earlier too, about how moms struggle now to let go of their kids. And I think that ties into like kind of what you were just saying, like, as for us as moms, like, to let them exist, like, right. Like, I don't agree with your politics. I don't agree with your parenting, and like, not cautious, because we gotta do it in a way that, like you've said, like, to have a backbone, to like have an opinion, but also like, we got to let them go. Like, they got to go live their lives. We can't micromanage them from the sidelines after they're gone. And I'm not saying that all estranged moms do that, of course, but it's just something that's interesting, like finding that balance in motherhood and that next season of letting them go, and like truly letting them go, and then being ready to give an opinion when it's time, but like being free with letting them fall and make mistakes too. But it's like the same thing if you're saying the conversation. We all have to exist and have to be able to tolerate differing opinions and conversations. And I do appreciate that Oprah's opened the door for more conversation.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. The thing is, though, too, for a lot of parents, especially moms who have devoted their lives to their kids, it's almost scary for them to realize and to once again step into the direction of, well, now you have to find your new life.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that next step in your life, and that's very scary for parents. They're very
Yeah.
comfortable in being a parent.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden now, it's an identity thing that, they have an issue with too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's even more so if they're in a strange situation where now what they did in the past, what they did as their job, so to speak, or whatever, you want to determine,
Mm-hmm.
that's not great. That's not, that didn't turn out great.
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe they can continue to love them harder, listen to them harder,
Mm-hmm.
Lay down for their boundaries more, and just, take whatever is dished out to you, just so they can, flip that, pancake to the right side, so to speak. And then, and once they've done that, then, it makes it easier for them to then say, okay, now I can take my next step in my own life. But that's not how it works. You can't do that. They're not tied. All right. And sometimes, quite honestly, and I think what Peter Anderson said is true.
Mm.
There's a heck of a lot of estranged adult kids. And I always say adult kids because they're always our kids. So I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes the best thing we can do is let them go.
Mm.
Let them go. Let them go. And give them the reins to sink, swim, succeed.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they do need to wreck their lives. Maybe they do need, maybe that's the path they're going down in order to wake up, because that's what's orchestrated for them now, because they're not going to wake up any other way. So maybe you just got to give them the keys to the car so that they can go,
navigating it like this from a Christian perspective is that we have to they could be walking out their testimony. God uses everything. And who am I to stand in their way? Like, yes, I'm looking at it and the decisions they're making, I don't agree with, or they scare me or whatnot, or it's not the way that I would have it done. You can see them headed to the cliff. Are they going to go off the cliff? I mean, obviously, I'm not saying you don't jump in if it's actual danger, but also at the same time, I think as moms, we jump too quickly to try to intervene and control. And really, there is beauty in stepping back, and that God, if especially as Christian women, like if we've entrusted our kids to the Lord, then they are His. And like if they're living their testimony, God will use that. And I think that we want to control it so they don't experience these hardships, but also there's a lot to be learned from that. And God is working in all of that, even through estrangement. Like hopefully this becomes part of their testimony. Hopefully it becomes part of a mom's testimony. Hopefully the Lord brings everybody back together and that's the testimony. But instead, it's easy to focus on what we did wrong, what they did wrong, our hurt, our grief. And that's fair. And I'm not saying you should rush that, but I'm also saying there's a part of it where we can rest assured that the Lord uses everything. And this could be their testimony.
Yeah. And yes. And their testimony could just be part of, what we need to learn about ourselves too. Right.
Yes.
So it's our situation. It's our testimony too, because he uses not just for them, but for us. So
Absolutely.
We are honestly, it's crazy even say this, because I know a lot of moms are going to want to hear this. It may not be popular, but it is actually the truth. And take a step back as I'm saying this and listen to me. You're exactly where you're supposed to be in the exact position you're supposed to be. You're perfectly positioned right now. Even though it's uncomfortable, this is exactly where you're supposed to be. You don't have to like it. You don't, you could wish it away, but this is where you're supposed to be for whatever the reason,
right?
This is where you're supposed to be. And he'll ultimately use it for your good. that may not be reconciliation.
Right.
But that's just the where we are at, and that's why we get so caught up in worry. Like, how are we going to control all this? I mean, how are we like pulling, like, please, I got to get this, walk this back. No, just let it. Do your best to just realize
that perspective. Well, then that perspective, I can really be a pivotal shift in walking through this, because it feels overwhelming and lonely, and there's shame, and you feel hollow because this thing that you love, this identity that is what defined you, motherhood, is not now looks different than you expected. I had someone say to me the other day, and I think it accurately depicts this whole thing, is it's a death of a million little dreams. It's all you thought the grandkids would come over, what you expected Christmas to be like with them. Like, it's all these little micro deaths of dreams. But when you shift it and you're like, okay, God has me here for a reason. What is that reason? Instead of just floating through this and just letting it sweep you away, claiming it and saying, okay, how am I going to use this what fruit is going to come from it? What character development is going to come from it? Like, Lord, how are you going to work in me? What are you going to do? What are you trying to teach me? Then it becomes not we're the victim, but like, we're going to use this. And it's almost empowering of like, okay, let's go. Like, I'm ready to take it on, to fight whatever I need to internally and battle those things. And I think it can really shift and be very empowering instead of feeling like we're just the victim.
And I think that it also brings you to a level of potential honesty with yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because there might be areas that you need to work on. And it's hard to accept that maybe from your kids. But if we're walking intentionally with the Lord, I'm confident he'll bring it to you and be like, hey, you maybe need to check this. This is an issue.
And also like, reality is when there's a type of honesty that rarely gets spoken. But for many parents whose kids eventually go estranged, somewhere inside they knew something wasn't right. They knew something was wrong when they were, in the situation, and they, for whatever reason, they didn't purposely turn away. They didn't purposely deny, but sometimes you automatically, even though something's wrong, you're trying to write it on your own, and you just can't get the combination. And then, so maybe you think, well, you go through these dry rituals. Well, maybe I'm not seeing it right. Or maybe you go to convince yourself when in your gut it was saying, no, this is something wrong. So the next time your gut says, and you're trying to say, yeah, but my mind knows better. I look at his gut, but I'm saying like the soul.
Yeah.
Right? So I say, no, this is not going to turn out well. This is wrong. This is not. Realize that that's the one you should be listening to, not your mind, not your your feelings. Like, I just want to, I want to fix this myself, or my feelings, I just love them and I don't want them to turn them loose or what have you. Recognize that many parents already knew it was wrong. It was wrong. Something was going to happen. It was like this dynamic wasn't good. There's something was going on. It didn't feel right. I think it's more, it didn't feel right. Maybe you couldn't put your finger on it, but it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And then you just didn't know what it was. Well, it doesn't matter if you know what it was. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't work. That's where it's not right. So you don't do it again. So next time you have a situation like that in your life, listen to what your soul is telling you.
Yeah. And I think that's how like women can find hope in walking through all of this, is that that when it's not all reliant on like us begging and pleading and getting our kids taking us back, and we listen to our gut, and we are walking it with the Lord, it's empowering. And I think that's what brings hope in this thing that can feel very hopeless.
Yeah.
Because I can't guarantee that you're going to have a relationship with your child. Sure, I want that for you if it's healthy, but I can't guarantee you that. But like, how do you find joy and hope in the middle of it?
Yeah, especially when what's turning out is not what you expected.
Right.
Accept that too.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's so layered and it's so complex, and there's so many twists and turns and different ways you can look at things and different things you can apply and different opinions. And it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
But, you know, it's like unraveling a ball of yarn. It just you know, one layer at a time.
Yeah. And I think there's different seasons of estrangement too. There's, you know, some people listening to what I'm saying, maybe like, no, like I just want to be miserable. And you're like, I think that everyone goes through the stages of it, just like grief. And that's okay to honor where you're at too. It's just because it's a lot.
Right. And it
It's a lot
doesn't
to take
mean
in.
that even though you're far down the road, like you're far down the road, but it doesn't mean that there are days you cry. Of course you
Right.
cry.
100%.
Memories, you know, all of a sudden crap, I'm like, you're crying. And like,
Yes.
wait a minute, I was, you know, I'm a shining example of phase 4, and I just got thrown back to phase 1.
Right, 100%. I asked on my Instagram stories yesterday, like the sting. Did people thought the sting of estrangement ever went away? And you know, they agreed with me that it doesn't. It's just that it changes or it dulls or other feelings overshadow it, but it's always there. And you never know like when it's going to be a little bit sharper. Like there's going to be a memory, or there's going to be an experience, and you're like, okay, yep, I'm back to stage 1. Yep, here I am. I'm overwhelmed. And that's okay. It's just part of it. And we've got to give ourselves a lot of grace in this, walking through this.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you all night, but I got
I love this. Yeah, like I could talk about this all the time. You've been wonderful. So,
but you were great, and I hope to have you back on the show. It would be a lot of fun to regroup in the next you know, couple of months and see what's going on at that point with all of us. But but in the meantime, keep up the good work. Thanks. You know, and keep encouraging other moms and you know, doing what you're doing in a very loving way. Hard on your sleeve. All right. I will see you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. There you have it. She's great, isn't she? I do love her. A lot of people love her. I'm going to make sure that you have links to her Instagram so that you can follow her too. And it's the 1-year anniversary of Doormat Mom No More, the book. December 7th was the actual official anniversary. And if you haven't picked it up yet, go over to Amazon, grab a copy, and do a little reading. And you'll learn more about my story, but you also see the community of people that emerged over the last year in that book. And they're amazing, amazing parents. That's it. I look forward to seeing you again next week. I have another really great guest. And the topic is that what she's going to be covering segues into what we're discussing. And it provides skills that I think we could really all use in having these conversations. So I look forward to it. Again, next week, Doormat Mom No More. And have a blessed day.